Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Anatomy of a Fall. This film was directed by Justine Triet. This is a French film. It is the winner of this year's Palme d'Or, and I would describe it as a murder mystery thriller that kind of turns into a procedural courtroom drama, and it is about a wife who is suspected of killing her husband. This is the kind of film that feels as if the director is chiseling away at something, and I think for the audience, they're kind of asking you to find the keys within the narrative that stand out to you, so you can figure out what the film means to you. And I would say this feeling reminds me of a movie that I reviewed last year called Drive My Car, also quite critically acclaimed. Similar meandering kind of feeling where you get lulled into a mood and you kind of stick there for a long while. And I think some people find that to be enjoyable, to kind of soak up all this information slowly. And I think other people might find it frustrating, as if you are drowning in the information, which ultimately flattens a lot of those emotional arcs rather than bringing them to the forefront. For me, in that film, I was kind of torn. I saw a lot of things about the film that I loved, certain things that I struggled with so far as editing, pacing, all that. When it comes to Anatomy of a Fall, it was weird. It was a weird film for me. Honestly, I struggled to wrap my head around a lot of the artistic choices here, and I think just the overall intent for the film. I do think that if the movie had maybe a little bit more focus, better editing, pacing, maybe more confident angle to the material, I think this could be really brilliant. And there are moments, I think, that are really special in the film, but overall, the movie reminds me of the kinds of people who take lots of paragraphs to describe something that could probably be said in maybe 2 sentences, and I'm one of those people. But I think when you're experiencing that in a narrative situation as a movie, I think that style can easily mask maybe the lack of a compelling thesis, which, you know, maybe that's the problem here, or maybe I'm just missing the point, and that could be possible as well. On the surface, this film is, yes, it is about a singular situation and all of the rippling effects, the complexities that come out of that situation once you peel back the layers from it. It's kind of like, you know, going down a rabbit hole of like a murder mystery case on Reddit, something like that, which can be really, really compelling. But in this film, we're kind of revealing the complexities of certain types of humans and the complexities of marriage specifically. But the way that it is presented does feel to me as if we are searching for the depth of the piece while we are making it at the same time, rather than just letting it form organically. It is a movie that seems very hyper-focused on the details, on certain, again, motivations of certain characters and such. And yet a lot of the narrative choices and decisions made by the characters don't necessarily feel authentic or well thought through at times. There is a subtle gloom to the film and a sort of simplicity to it where, you know, you can feel that there is a certain sensitivity paid to the events that are unfolding here. And yet, at the same time, a lot of the metaphors and a lot of the symbols in the movie do feel very labored and very hackneyed. There are several examples of this, but I think the young boy is maybe the best one. The couple in the movie does have a young boy, and he is really the only witness, or as close to being a witness as he could be to the actual death of his father. But oh, there is a caveat, and it is that the boy is blind. I know, isn't that the way? And that whole device just felt I don't know, very silly to me. And at first I thought, you know, oh, maybe this is just one of those really kind of strange pastiche elements that we are borrowing from, you know, like maybe old, like 1970s occult horror movies, satanic horror movies. And maybe we're using that device that is familiar to us to make a new point in a new atmosphere, a different type of film, because this kid does feel like he is straight out of The Omen. But no, that's really not the case at all, which is fine. I don't mind, you know, subversion of expectations in that way. But here, the blindness is merely a gimmick, and it's not even a very well employed gimmick at that. And again, for a film that is so muted in aesthetic and just the experience of it, that just feels like an awfully tawdry device. And other characters in the film and certain things do feel a little bit cookie cutter, and they reduce a lot of the depth of the material. The movie is shifting between this naturalistic look that is kind of docudrama realistic, where it's kind of got a handheld look to it. Reminds me a lot of, you know, Cassavetes movies, but without the same frenzied type of tension going on there. The film does clearly have a sense of humor to it, and yet that humor doesn't really feel like it's rooted in anything that is concrete or consistent. So yeah, I feel really baffled and confused by a lot of the choices going on here. The film was written for the main actress, and it's Sandra Hüller. I think that's how you say the name. I'm sorry if that is wrong. But she is phenomenal in this movie. She is the reason, I think, for this film's success for the most part. She is very icy, and yet her emotions can still at times be on the surface, which is a very interesting contradiction. And she has these kind of almost beady dark eyes where I feel like it obscures a lot of the emotion of what she's feeling. It obscures a lot of her struggles for sure. And there's something about that that makes it feel like she has a chip on her shoulder always. And she does. I mean, she has a very independent kind of way of looking at the world. There is just a blankness in her face where you can feel the potential to really erupt there. And it feels like the calm before a storm, which is often very scary. She gives me Jenna Rollins energy for sure. And just like Rollins, if there's anyone that is going to constantly pull you into the intensity of the experience, it is this actress here. I feel like she understands the film. She works just as the perfect centerpiece for it. And she kind of helps settle us within the chaos, which I do think is desperately needed in this film. And I do think she has to work kind of over time here, just because a lot of the truth that we learn about this couple so far as their internal motivation, it starts to get shrouded in a lot of noise. Rather than finding an interesting subversion that anchors a lot of this ambiguity in something, I just felt like there were too many red herrings, too many diversions, and there's a very busy feeling. And it really does bother me the way that the attempt at subversion is handled here, because I feel like it's just delayed far too long. Finally, at a certain point in the movie, we get a flashback sequence, and I don't know, it just feels, the writing felt very on the nose. But the point of the scene is to finally shift our skepticism more towards the wife. And that is really where we're starting to get more suspense, as she is the prime suspect. But the delay of withholding that information from the audience, number one, I don't think it helps the climactic tension at all. But also, it's a diversion that doesn't really make a lot of sense considering the way that the story has been built thus far. And a lot of that has not been set up for us properly as viewers. I just really struggled with that flashback sequence. A lot is revealed within it. Another element is revealed more, where we're seeing the frustration that the male character, the husband character, has because of this role reversal, this subversion of gender. Suddenly that is a huge aspect to the story and a huge part of the case. It is the complexity of maybe feminine dominance and then maybe male submissiveness, and maybe the insecurities and difficulties that can arise from that. But again, it feels a little bit hammered in, it feels inauthentic because of that. And so naturally we don't feel the repercussions of those emotions. And like I keep saying, so many of these metaphors going on here sprinkled throughout either contradict or just fight the tension of the story rather than working with it. And that makes me feel like I'm being toyed with as a viewer, rather than you're trying to work with me again. You're trying to show me a new revelation. That's really more what I'm interested in here. And I do think if you're going to make a movie where a lot of it has to do with those gender expectations, that gender subversion, it's like, why not plant those seeds more firmly, more confidently from the beginning? To me, I feel like the movie could have been tightened up. We could have lightened the load of the story a lot more if we had just made the roles more simple, in the sense of maybe the wife here is the husband and the husband is the wife. So it's the wife that dies and it is the husband that is the suspect. It's not like I don't want to see a more androgynous, dominant woman here as the prime suspect, because that's a really interesting idea. I just don't think it's built properly here. It just feels like the more traditional roles of marriage would be easier to tackle here in a film that, again, seems to be running over itself with all of these deconstructive symbolic elements. I feel frustrated by this film, but I also feel weirdly intrigued by it at the same time. I could easily see myself wanting to see this film again. I could see myself liking this film a lot more if maybe it were handled differently. And yet, as it stands, like I said about Drive My Car, though I like that film better than this one for sure, but as it stands, there's something that is kind of satisfying about that slow burn unfolding mystery, even if, yeah, the editing really leaves a lot to be desired, where you're absorbing all of these perspectives kind of like a sponge. And so from that perspective, I think it might be worth renting for sure. And it is worth watching absolutely for the most masterful performance by the lead actress at the center. You want to talk about Oscar buzz here? Well, I mean, this is the best performance of the year by far that I've seen. So I am going to recommend this film, but I'm doing it very cautiously. I think there are people that are going to see this film as a masterpiece. People are going to really get on board with it. And I think there are going to be other people that are more on my side, that struggle with it and struggle with maybe the acclaim here. But yes, so that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commissioned portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.